Okay, so just to do a quick summary, we're going to try to make these videos about 20 minutes long. We're going to start with the first part, Unidad Uno. In this unit, we're going to learn to greet people politely, according to the time of day, introduce ourselves and others, inquire about somebody's health, and talk about our own and other people's possessions. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to start this chapter with is Diálogo Uno. All right, so we're going to start with that. We're just going to listen and follow along.
Diálogo.
And try to follow along.
It is the first day of school. Conchita and Eduardo bump into each other in the cafeteria. They both have new friends who are visiting Venezuela and whom they introduce to each other.
Hola, Eduardo. ¿Qué tal tu primer día de escuela?
Hola, Conchita. Es un día muy interesante. Tengo nuevos profesores y hay muchos nuevos alumnos en mi clase. ¿Quién es la chica contigo?
Te presento a mi nueva amiga María. Ella es de Guatemala.
Mucho gusto, María, y bienvenida a Venezuela. Yo soy Eduardo, hermano mayor de Conchita.
Encantada. ¿Y quién es tu amigo?
Este es Ricardo, es de Perú. Esta es mi hermana Conchita.
Encantado.
Bienvenido y mucho gusto.
El gusto es mío.
Pues, hasta luego. Nosotras vamos a tomar el almuerzo.
The two girls go off.
¿Qué piensas? María es muy linda.
Sí, tu hermana también.
All right, so as we see in this first audio, just had a bit of a dialogue between four people. The four people were Conchita, Eduardo, Ricardo, and Maria. All right, so I'm hoping that you guys are able to follow along in the dialogue to kind of figure out. Moving forward, there's some questions that we want to pick out from the dialogue that we see on the next page. So the first question that we see is ¿Qué tal tu primer día de escuela? That was what Conchita had actually asked Eduardo when she met him. All right, so we see it down here. ¿Qué tal tu primer día de escuela? Pretty much what she's saying is, how was your first day of school? All right, so when we break it up, ¿Qué tal is a way that we can say how is, and then we look at the tu primer día. So día means day, primer is first, tu being the possessive word because we're referring to Eduardo's day, and escuela is school. So we just break it up like this. So how is your first day of school? All right. Moving along, also have some vocabulary words. We have quien, which means who. Te presento a, which is let me introduce you. So as we see, Conchita had actually used this earlier up in the conversations. You see, te presento a mi nueva amiga Maria. So I'm presenting you, or let me introduce my new friend Maria. She's from Guatemala. So bienvenida is welcome. Tomar el almuerzo is to have lunch. So as we see, bienvenido is written here. So we're pretty much welcoming. Tomar el almuerzo is to have lunch. So pretty much when Conchita was leaving, she said, you know what, later. Well, you know what, goodbye. We're going to go eat lunch, to have lunch. Now, it's interesting to note that the nosotras was used in this instance because it was two females, Conchita and Maria. But we'll get to that as we go down in the chapter. ¿Qué piensas is just what do you think? So Eduardo was like, you know what do you think? Asking Ricardo, hey, what do you think? Maria es muy linda, you know, she's a nice person. And Ricardo was like, yeah, boy, your sister too. Tu hermana también. So it was just kind of a little funny thing in the dialogue. And mucho gusto, encantado, encantada. That's just pretty much how we tell people, you know what, it's nice to meet you, it's pleased to meet you. It's important to note that for the encantado, encantada, we're going to see it later on in the chapter. But when saying encantado, encantada, it's not to the person that you're speaking. It's about yourself. So you're a male, you will always use encantado. If you're in a group of males or you're in a bigger group of people with at least one male and many females, you'd use encantados. One female will use encantada to pretty much say it's pleased to meet you, and then a group of females will say encantadas, but we'll see it later on into... So for the second part of the chapter, we're going to move to greeting people. So we're just going to follow the pictures and listen to the dialogues and pay special attention to the times of the day.
Ejercicio 1. Greeting people. Look at the following pictures and listen to the dialogues. Note the times of day.
Buenos días, Carlos. ¿Cómo estás?
Hola, Antonio. Estoy bien.
Buenas noches, Carla, mi amor.
Buenas tardes, Rita. ¿Qué tal?
Regular, Magdalena.
Note how these people welcome others.
Bienvenido y mucho gusto. ¿Cómo está usted?
El gusto es mío. Estoy bien.
Bienvenidas. Encantada.
Encantada. Gracias.
Okay, so as we see here, we're going to move to the greetings of the day. So there are three ways that we normally greet people in Spanish. There's buenos días, which is good morning. There's buenas tardes, which is good afternoon or good evening, or good afternoon. And buenas noches, which is good evening or good night. So as we can see, looking at the dialogue, we can see that when the first picture between Antonio and Carlos, we see that buenos días was used. Buenos días was used. And the reason being is because there was actually, the sun was still out. So we normally tend to use buenos días for the morning time when the sun is out. Buenas tardes is normally used in the afternoon time. And then buenas noches is used in the evening or the night time. So it's important to know that for the three greetings, the días is the one that requires the the buenos is masculine, it's buenos días, and the others are feminine. So buenas tardes and buenas noches. So that's something to just keep in mind. Looking through the dialogue just really quickly, we see that he said buenos días, Carlos, ¿cómo estás? How are you? ¿Cómo tú estás? We're going to get to that as we go to the conjugations a little later. Hola, Antonio, estoy bien. So he's responding using the verb estar. And as it conjugates, yo estoy, tú estás, él, ella, está, nosotros estamos, y ellos, ellas, ustedes están. So that's important to note. Buenas noches, Carlos. Buenas noches, Carla, mi amor. And buenas tardes, Rita, ¿qué tal? And she responds, regular, Magdalena. So, and we move on to the second part where you see how these people welcome others. You're going to see bienvenido y mucho gusto. So, this guy here is speaking to this guy. So, he's going to tell him, he's telling him, bienvenido. If this person here was female, this guy would actually say bienvenida. Female, because it would have been a female, but seeing that it is a guy, he says bienvenido to the person. Y mucho gusto. Alright? Now, the mucho gusto is pretty much saying, as we said earlier, the mucho gusto was pleased to meet you. Alright? And this one says el gusto es mío. It says the pleasure is mine. Estoy bien. Using the same, so here we see estar, which is the same verb as we mentioned before, estar, which is kind of like state of being. He said, ¿Cómo está usted? And then he responded using the same verb but conjugated for himself. He said, yo estoy bien. All right? You can say the yo if you want to, or you can leave it out, but at least he conjugated it accordingly. Next, we see the conversation between the ladies, we see how this woman here is actually saying bienvenidas, all right, because there are two females coming into the door, female 1, female 2, so bienvenidas. She's greeting them in plural. And she's saying encantada because, like I said previously, she's saying encantada for herself. All right? Now, so she's saying encantada to them. Now, here we see the mother coming in and she's saying encantada gracias. Encantada gracias. Now, she's saying it on behalf of only herself, because as we would see down in the lower down in the section, if it were a group of girls, what they would say is encantadas, because they're describing themselves as a group, right? A group of females. So had the two of them spoken together, they would have said encantadas. But it seems in this case, only the mother is speaking. That's why she only said encantada singular. And as we see it here, just one person would say, one female would say encantada. All right. So even for, excuse me, a boy would say encantado, which means pleased to meet you. A group of boys, or a mixed group, like I said earlier, a mixed group is in a group of girls and at least one guy, would say encantados. So it doesn't matter if there's 100 girls and one guy, 1,000 girls and one guy, they would have to say encantados. All right. And then we have this here. So when welcoming a male, you say bienvenido. So you're speaking to somebody next to you, bienvenido. Or when you're talking to the guys in your class, bienvenido. Or if you're talking to the whole group entirely, a group of males or a mixed group, bienvenidos. So these are just things to take into consideration as we move forward. Another thing to note is if you want to find out how someone is doing, you would say, ¿Cómo estás tú? Or ¿Qué tal? When speaking to friends or family. So like we had, one thing to note is that this is an informal greeting. The informal greetings is just friends and family. But when it's speaking to somebody in authority or somebody you don't know too well, or like the book says, a stranger, you'd actually use ¿Cómo está usted? So like we said, the same verb, estar, would be conjugated. Yo estoy, tú estás, él, ella, usted, está, nosotros, estamos, and ellos, ellas, ustedes. Jeez, my man, writing is terrible. Están. Don't forget the accent. So now we move to the third part, which talks about the te toca a ti, ejercicio para hablar. So pretty much, what would these people say when they're introducing themselves to other people? So Pablo is pleased to meet Carlitos. So as we spoke earlier, what would Pablo say to Carlito? Well, guess what? Pablo, being the male, would say encantado, as we spoke about that earlier. And, oh geez, boy. Encantado. All right. So, Selena is pleased to meet Andres. Carmen and Anita are pleased to meet Fabia. Pedro and Jose are pleased to meet Annabella. And Sandra and Enrique are pleased to meet Arturo. So I want you guys to just go through that by yourself, and then we'll discuss it a little later. If you need any assistance, you go up to the previous section right here, and then it'll give you an idea of how to answer it. Just remember, it's somebody speaking to somebody else. So you just have to kind of figure out who is the person doing the introducing. So for example, Pedro and Jose are pleased to meet Annabella. Carmen and Anita are pleased to meet Fabia. All right. So moving right along, what would you say to welcome these people? All right. What would you say to welcome these people? Josefa and Yana, you would welcome them. How would you welcome them? Josefa and Yana, both of them are females. So we would actually say bienvenidas. Remember, we're welcoming a group of females. So bienvenidas. All right. Maria, she's a female. Jorge is a male. Carlota y Leo. This one is very important. This is one that will actually tend to trip up a lot of people. Leo is a guy. Remember, Leo is a guy. So in this case, we would actually say when welcoming a group of males or a mixed group, as long as there is one male in the group, bienvenidos. So for this one, actually, we would use bienvenidos. Handwriting, terrible. All right, so I'm gonna leave you guys to figure out number 2, 3, and 5. Great stuff. So then, find out how these people are doing. What would you say or what would you ask? Remember how we said, to find out how they're doing, you can use the formal, ¿Cómo está usted? The informal, which is ¿Cómo estás tú? Or ¿Qué tal? So you have to kind of go through this list and figure out, this one is pretty much more or less straightforward. All right. So strangers and people you're not too familiar with, remember, formal. People in authority, strangers / people you're not too familiar with. All right. So next we're going to get to introducing people, which is the next part of the dialogue.
Ejercicio 3. Introducing people. Listen and follow the dialogue as these people introduce themselves.
Hola, me llamo César. Encantado.
Hola, soy María, encantada.
Hola, mi nombre es Julio. Mucho gusto.
Listen and note how the members of the Márquez family introduce each other.
Te presento a mi esposo.
Esta es mi mamá.
Estas son mi esposa y mi hija.
Este es mi hijo, Eduardo.
Estos son mis hermanos, Eduardo y Paquito.
Okay, so I wanted to just bring something, just to rewind a little bit, to give you an idea of who's speaking, right? For the dialogues, we're gonna go over them again, but the first one says, Te presento a mi esposo. So somebody is presenting their husband to you. Who do you think is the person speaking?
Te presento a mi esposo.
So based on that, we can actually tell it's the wife who's introducing her husband to somebody else.
Esta es mi mamá.
Esta es mi mamá. So that tells us that one of the children, a male child, is actually introducing his mother to someone. And
Estas son mi esposa y mi hija.
eso mi esposa y mi hija.
Este es mi hijo, Eduardo.
Estos son mis hermanos, Eduardo y Paquito.
All right, so by listening to that, it kind of gives you an idea of who's speaking. I want you to kind of figure out who's doing the speaking in these scenarios. All right, so when introducing males, you use este or estos. All right, so here's the example. Este es Manuel. This is Manuel. Estos son Manuel y Martin. These are Manuel and Martin. All right. So, and when introducing females, use esta or estas. Note, and this is important, this estas here does not have an accent as compared to estas with an accent, which is a conjugation of the verb estar. All right. So that's one of the things to note in Spanish. Whenever you see estás written without an accent, it's usually, it means these feminine. All right. So when the accent is present, it's usual. When the accent is present, it is the you form of the verb estar, the you form conjugation of the verb estar. So we're gonna just go up quickly. So it was used here, esta es mi mamá. This singular is my mother. Also note this one doesn't have the singular doesn't have the accent as well, because if it had the accent, it would have actually been the él, ella, usted, conjugation of the verb estar as well. That's another point to note. Esta es mi mamá. So this is my mother. Estas son mi esposa y mi hija. He's speaking about two women, so he would use the plural form of introducing females. So like remember, singular, plural, singular, plural. Este es mi hijo, singular, mi hijo, and estos son mis hermanos. Estos, plural, for introducing the male. So, te toca a ti. Introduce yourself to your classmates in 3 ways. Meet and greet other members of your class, and introduce various classmates to the rest of the class. So what I want you guys to do is to just write a couple scenarios. Just write them down. Nothing too extravagant, just so that I can get an idea of how much you're grasping, or even send some voice notes if possible, just to hear you guys speak it. I just want to hear you all speak it. You can write something down and read. You know, it may not necessarily come to you right away. That's fine. You write something down and just read it. I want to hear how you speak it. So now we move on to wiggle. So a student is blindfolded. He, she must touch the head of the face of another student in order to identify who that student is. Just like a blind person, use the words este or esta. Alright, so in book 1, you learned about possessive adjectives. Notice that they don't agree with the person, but rather the thing being possessed. So it's not, if it's a guy, you're only going to use masculine possessive adjectives. You're going to use, depending on what it is that you're touching. Alright. And I see they have some examples here. So for example, if you're talking about the pelo, for example, you would say su pelo, all right, his hair. Or if you're speaking to the person directly, you say tu pelo, all right. Notice how our can be expressed in 4 different ways. There's nuestro, there's nuestros, there's nuestra, and nuestras, all right. Everything else is me for singular, mis for plural, belonging to myself, tu for note, tu without the accent, and tus for your stuff, and su for he, him, his or hers, and sus for anything that's plural. Ejercicio para escribir. Put the following phrases into Spanish. Great. My brother and your sister. Alright, so I'll help fill out the first one. You guys just fill out the rest in your time. So, mi hermano y, jeez boy, mi hermano y tu hermana. Note how I did not put an accent on the tu. If I did put an accent on the tu, it would have read my brother and you sister, which wouldn't make any sense. All right, so we want it to be a possessive adjective, so we're gonna take out the accent and we leave it as tu hermana. All right, so your sister. So it's important for the accent. So we've learned accent versus no accent in the word esta and estas, and we've learned accent and no accent in the word tu and tu. All right, so things to be mindful of. You guys can fill out the rest. Look at the following words: el mío, la mía, los míos, las mías. All of them mean mine, but as you can see, mío is masculine, so use el. Mía is feminine, so we use la. Míos is masculine plural, so we use los. And mías is feminine plural, so we use las. Same thing as tuyo, suyo, nuestro. I just pretty much have to say mine, yours, his, hers, ours. Okay? So if you want to say the book is mine, the book is mine. You would say el libro es mío. Or you would say, if they're asking, oh, whose book is this? El mío. It's mine. Because the book is singular. Whose books are these? You know, los míos. Because the books, plural, belong to you. More practice in this area to kind of help it solidify. We'll go over some more examples moving forward. So these are called possessive pronouns and usually refer back to a noun previously mentioned, and they therefore agree with the noun in number and also gender. This is very important. It has to agree with the noun in gender. So este es mi libro. Este es mi libro. So este, we spoke about that. Why este? Because we're talking about the libro, which is masculine. We're also going to say mi, singular, because we're talking about one book, libro. All right. And then, ¿dónde está el tuyo? Where is yours? Tuyo refers to the libro. All right. Where is your libro? All right. As we see, el tuyo. Aquí están tus libros. So here we go again. Están conjugated because it's the verb estar, which means to be present. So, aquí están, your books are present here. Tus libros. Plural. Los nuestros están sobre la mesa. So, the nuestros that they're referring to are the libros, plural. So, we would use los nuestros. Okay? So, they could have said, nuestros libros están sobre la mesa, which would be our books are on the table. Or they could just say los nuestros. It's like in English when we say ours. Los nuestros just means ours. So reading this straightforward, it says ours are on the table. But they could have said our books. Nuestros libros, our books are on the table, or you could just say ours are on the table. Los nuestros están sobre la mesa. Alright? So when the pronoun comes after the verb ser, you do not use the article. So when the pronoun comes after the verb ser, you do not use the article. For example, this book is mine. Este libro es mío. After the verb ser, right? So ser, in this case, conjugates ser. So we did estar. Estar is the verb to be, but it mostly refers to being present in a location. Ser is the verb to be, which means state of being, more or less. So, for example, yo soy hombre. I am. My state of being, my permanent state of being. Like we sing, ese libro es mío. It is the state of being, it belongs to me, it's mine. Estas sillas son nuestras. Remember, we use nuestras, plural feminine, because the sillas, plural feminine, all right? But because we're talking about sillas, plural, we're going to use son, all right? We'll talk about that a little bit more. It's a little bit, but it's just, we're speaking about objects, the number of objects. Let me just clear out the space a little bit. There seems to be a lot of... Alright, so estos, discos son suyos. Alright, discos, suyos, masculine, plural. But because it's discos, plural, we're going to use son. If it was just disco, we would have said, well, actually we use estos as well because it's discos and discos suyos. If it was just one disco, we would say este disco es suyo. Alright? But because it's plural, we have to use estos, which means these discos. Are, we would have to use the plural form of are, well, the plural form of ser, which is son, and suyos, as we mentioned earlier. Alright? So, ejercicio para hablar y escribir. Read the following sentences aloud, then write down the meanings of each one in English. Alright, so este es mi lápiz, pero ¿dónde está el tuyo? Alright, so what I want you guys to do for me is, if it's possible, record voice notes, send them for me. I want to hear how you pronounce the words and just write it down. Take your time, there's no need to rush, but I want to know that you guys are listening to the words properly and being able to form them correctly. And take your time. It's not about speaking it quickly, it's about speaking it correctly. Alright, so the next one, ejercicio para hablar y escribir, that's number 8. Translate the following sentences to Spanish. As well, you guys can do the same thing. Voice notes, send it for me. And write it down, send pictures, or just type it in the whatever. Yeah. Vamos a cantar. So we're going to move to the next track.
Canción. Vamos a cantar.
Ah, boy. Men singing.
Buenos días,
Let's do this, guys.
¿cómo estás?
Buenos días, ¿cómo estás?
Oh, muy bien,
Oh, muy bien.
gracias.
Gracias.
¿Y cómo te va?
Okay, so we see
Buenos
there's a
días,
conversation happening here.
nada de nuevo. Chao, mi amigo. Y hasta luego.
Okay, so this song was just pretty much a little dialogue. Also, tell me what you guys think it means. Just send it in the group. That's fine. Number 10, activities. Fill in each bubble to complete the greetings with appropriate questions or replies. Hola Miguel, ¿qué tal? So, you're pretty much asking Miguel, yo, what's up, man? How you doing? So how would Miguel respond in that situation? All right, you can go scroll up, get an example as to kind of figure out how he would respond when somebody asks him ¿qué tal? You can even look in the dialogue, for example. All right. Here we go. So when they asked Rita, they said, Rita, ¿qué tal, man? ¿Qué tal, girl? She's like, regular Madalena. Or even in the case where like, buenos días, Carlos, ¿cómo estás? Man, estoy bien, man. So it's pretty much just asking, how are you? As we had seen there we go. As we had seen right here, it's just pretty much asking, if you want to find out how someone is doing, ¿cómo estás o qué tal? So you can even actually respond by saying estoy. ¿Qué tal? Estoy bien. Or you can say, man, I'm okay. I'm regular. Granted, we don't really say regular. But you can respond by saying, this is just somebody asking you, what's up? How you doing? All right. So the response that was given here by Laura is, me llamo Laura, me llamo Laura, encantada. So there's something that was asked here that made her respond with a name and to say pretty much nice to meet you. So what do you think this question was? All right. You guys will figure this out as we move along. So looking at the situation, bienvenida Sara. And what do you think Sara responded when somebody welcomed her? And then te presento a mi amiga Sofia. So what do you think this young lady here responded? Now, in this case, remember, young lady speaking here, young lady speaking here, young lady speaking here. So be mindful as to what you put in regard to the gender of the person. Complete these sentences with este, estos, esta, and estas. We did that earlier. Then estos, plural masculine, estas singular feminine, and estas plural feminine. Estos can also be for a mixed group. All right. What greetings would you use at these times? We went through that a while ago, so you guys should be able to kind of figure that out. We said use one for the morning, use one for the afternoon, with less sun rays, and then we use another one for the night. That moon looks like a kidney, but that's fine. And then ejercicio para escuchar y escribir. We're almost done, so we're just gonna go through this one quickly. Here's a picture of Carlos and his family.
Ejercicio 8. Ejercicio para escuchar. Here is a picture of Carlos Rivera and his family. Listen to him as he introduces them. Afterwards, fill in the boxes to identify each member correctly.
Hola amigos, mi nombre es Carlos Rivera.
So we're following
En la
right here.
foto les presento a mi familia. Somos 5. En la foto hay un hombre alto y delgado, con bigote. Este es mi padre. Hay una mujer bella y un poco gorda. Esta es mi madre. En el fondo hay un hombre gordo con gafas. Este es mi tío. El niño delante de mi mamá es Rafael. Este es mi hermanito. Yo soy el chico guapo al lado de mi padre. Bueno, esta es mi familia. ¿Cómo es tu familia?
All right, so like you see, Carlos was describing, this is Carlos here, and Carlos is pretty much just talking about his family. So just to kind of give you, we have the vocabulary was down here. Bigote means mustache and gafas is glasses. All right, so let's just go through it very quickly. Mi nombre es Carlos Rivera. En la foto les presento a mi familia. So my name is Carlos Rivera. In the photo, I'm presenting to you, plural, les presento. We saw previously te presento. That's when you're speaking to one person. Hey, you, I'm presenting to you, my family. You, this one person. But les presento, I'm presenting to all of you guys, my family. Somos cinco. All right? En la foto hay un hombre alto y delgado con bigote. So it's a tall and skinny man with a mustache. All right? And he said that this is his father. So out of these people, we see that this man here is actually the tall, skinny man with a mustache. So this must be the father. All right? Afterwards, he said, hay una mujer bella y un poco gorda. So he's saying, there's a pretty woman, beautiful woman, who's just a little chubby. And well, in this case, there's one woman that fits the bill in this picture. And this would be this lady. He said that this person, esta es mi madre. Mi madre. So, the mother. And then you guys will just read through the rest and just kind of figure out the last two to figure out who is who. So, ejercicio para hablar y escribir. First, say aloud, then write the appropriate Spanish expressions for each situation. You introduce yourself to your Facebook group. What is your message? How would you introduce yourself to your Facebook group? Hey guys, you just recently got added to a WhatsApp group or Facebook group. You say, hey, hi, I'm Rashad. Nice to meet you guys. Simple. So first say aloud, then write the appropriate Spanish expressions for each situation. So you introduce yourself to your Facebook group. What is your message? Okay, so you introduce yourself to your Facebook group, your WhatsApp group. You say, hey guys, I'm Rashad. Nice to meet everybody inside of here or whatever. So buenos días o buenas tardes o buenas noches. Yo soy Rashad y encantado. That's simply put. You can add a little bit more word. Buenos días a todos. Buenas tardes a todos. It's like good afternoon to everybody. Yo soy Rashad and encantado estar aquí en este grupo. I'm pleased to be in this group. So there's more things that you build on as you continue to learn the language. You begin to add things. You upload a picture of your friend, introduce her to your Facebook group. What is your message? So you're introducing your friend to your Facebook group. Okay, so hey group of people, hey group of more than one person, les presento. Okay, les presento a. So that's important too. You respond to a message from a new contact. Post a message expression, pleasure at meeting him or her. So nothing in this chapter is something new. We've gone through these things previously. So scroll back in the video, go higher up in the chapter, kind of just refresh and then we're moving forward. All right? You guys will do the rest. Bring to school various photos of family members and friends and introduce them to your classmates in Spanish. That's a good activity. So we're gonna we can just practice that online. That's not a problem. Take a picture or a small video and just present the person in the photo to me. That's fine. And nota cultural. So here we just have a little cultural note and the actividad cultural. So this takes us to the end of the first chapter. All right. So as we continue to move forward, hopefully the videos can get a little shorter, more interactive, hopefully. But it's an attempt to try to bring the Spanish at an individual level that you guys can actually assimilate the information a little bit better. All right. So any questions or any comments, just let me know. That's not a problem. Let me know if there was anything that confused you, anything that you would like further clarification on. Write down your questions, bring them to class. That's fine. We'll talk about them in the group setting to at least hear each other's feedback, because somebody may have a question that somebody else may very well would like to know the answer to. So, all right.